Hello, this is Joe from Nerd in Korea. We are doing another budget deck tech here. We're doing Wayta Trainer Prodigy, and it's a budget Barney fight is what I'm calling it. Oh, good. So Wayta Trainer Prodigy, first of all, she has haste, which is nice. I guess, you know what, let me take a big step back. She's red, green, white. Naya, I believe that's called. And for 2 and a green, you can tap her to target creature you control fights another target creature. This ability costs 2 less to activate if 2 creatures you control. So for 1 green and tap, you can make 2 of your own creatures fight, which sounds like it's a bad idea, right? Nope. It's actually pretty good. If a creature you control being dealt damage causes a triggered ability of an opponent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Extra triggers on commanders are like super powerful. This is like, I think, one of the most powerful kind of abilities you can get. Anyway, she's 25 cents right now. I don't know why. Anyway, having only 3 mana cost also is a big win for a commander. Like, again, if you have a 3 color commander, 3 mana is the lowest cost you can have. So yeah. Already winning there, I think. The deck price in total is $34.86. Okay, so it is on TCG Player. One commenter last week actually let me know apparently TCG Player charges quite a bit for shipping. I didn't know that. I'm in South Korea. I can't order from TCG Player. I did always wonder, like, how does Card Kingdom stay in business if TCG Player is like half the cost sometimes? Oh, yeah, okay. That kind of makes more sense. I am going to keep using TCG Player just because, well, consistency, first of all. And second, it is actually telling us about the value of the deck. You might be able to just go to your like local game shop and like get it for about this price. So that's hopefully what you could do, but anyway. Yeah. You can check the deck on moxfield.com. I am going to put a link in the description there. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, Kyle Marston pointed out that, yeah, the shipping cost from TCG is high. I did not realize. Apparently it's like $100 for shipping. Like, the deck is cheap, but then the shipping is... Card Kingdom, I guess the shipping is much lower, but you're going to pay more for the deck. So it kind of depends on a case-by-case basis. Maybe if they have some kind of special shipping deal sometime, it would be more worthwhile. Part 1. Wayta Trainer Prodigy. About the commander. So again, we're looking at this again, and so yeah, doubling triggers always allows you to abuse many mechanics or abilities. Creature removal is a major strength of this commander, right? You can make any creature you have fight any other creature pretty much anytime your commander is untapped. So creature removal is not a big problem for this deck. Being able to remove an opponent's commander is very powerful. Remember, commanders are creatures, right? So you can kind of just keep knocking out people's commanders, and a lot of times that will shut down their deck, frankly. Most commander decks are built around the commander. I have one deck where I can win without the commander. And all the others are very planned and synergized around the commander, obviously. Because it's commander. Yeah, hey. Okay, the high synergy cards now. Brash Taunter. Okay, this guy used to be super expensive and now not. I don't fully understand why not, but he's not. So yeah, there we are. Alright, whenever Brash Taunter is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target opponent. There are similar effects where you have to choose the opponent or choose like target creature or something like that. This you can target a different person or a different opponent every single time he takes damage. Remember, these damage triggers are doubled. So if you take 10 damage, you're giving 10 damage back out. Or sorry, if he takes 10 damage, you can send 10 and 10, 20 damage back out, right? This doubling triggers is very important in this deck. And yeah, he can fight another target creature for 2 and a red. So you can kind of force another creature to do damage to him to get those double triggers as well. Just crazy. Indestructible is definitely the icing on that cake right there. Ranging Raptors. Okay, so when this takes damage, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Twice. Every time it takes damage, remember, you're doing that twice. You don't need to do this a whole lot of times to get value out of it. So one thing about fight mechanic you got to remember is that they only heal up at the end of the turn. Creatures heal all damage at the end of the turn. So if they fight and they go into combat, they're going to have taken damage and they're going to take more damage in combat. It's easier to kill them. So you got to be careful about that. But even if you get this to fight one time and then you attack with it and it takes damage in combat, that's going to be 4 lands. For 3 mana, you're getting 4 basic lands onto the battlefield. They come in tapped, but that's really like that's all of all colors of mana. Your mana fixing's done. That's a really kind of crazy start there. Pariah. So we actually have a few effects like this, but anyway, this is the enchantment version. All damage that we dealt to you is dealt to an enchanted creature instead. We have a lot of creatures that will, like, whenever they take damage, they'll just do it to someone else, or to an opponent, or a creature an opponent controls, or anything like that. So put this on one of those creatures, and then you can get someone else to just attack you and not block it, and then you can take some, like, if there's kind of an arch nemesis, if there's someone that's like a threat at the table, you can fairly easily just take them out of the game with this, right? You're going to be doing the auto damage, and it's going to be twice. So again, if you cast this on, say, Brash Taunter, any damage you take, you're going to be able to do double damage to someone else, and you don't even actually take that damage. You take 0. Brash Taunter, who's indestructible, takes the damage, right? Part 2, the plan. So what are the deck objectives for Wayta? Number 1, always ramp, right? Mana fixing ramp, whatever it might be. That's kind of step 1 in every deck, I feel. But anyway, Dinosaur time, and then damage reflection and win cons, alright? That's kind of what we're looking at for this deck. So ramp. We've got Thunderherd Migration. As additional cost of the spell, you may reveal a dinosaur card from your hand or pay 1. You're probably going to have a dinosaur card in your hand, right? Search your library for a basic land card. Put it into the battlefield tap, then shuffle. It's, it gets a basic land. It's really more about mana fixing or something like that. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's only a basic land. That's not great. I want it to say like forest or something. When it comes right down to it, like, the mana is mana, right? Anyway. Atzoken Seer. You can tap him for 1 mana of any color, and also, later we're going to bring him up. Return target, or sacrifice him to return target dinosaur card from your graveyard to your hand. So graveyard recursion is always lovely. Especially with things that are important, like the dinosaurs that are going to want to use targeted removal on. Hulking Raptor has Ward 2? Sure. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add green. Remember, this disappears at the end of the pre-combat main phase. You don't keep mana for the whole turn. Even if you tap a land during your pre-combat main phase and make the mana, as soon as you get to combat, that mana disappears, right? That's gone. So, getting that in your pre-combat main phase does not mean you have 2 for the whole turn. You gotta use it then. Karamitra, God of Harvest. This is a card I want to put in like every deck I can put it in. Anyway, Indestructible, always good, especially in this deck. As long as your devotion to green and white is less than 7, it isn't a creature. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may search your library for a forest or plains card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So this is, you do have like some cheaper creature spells. A lot of them are more expensive, but getting that extra land out every time is going to add up so quickly. It's exactly what this deck needs. Verdant Confluence. I actually only recently checked out all these Confluence cards. I knew Mystic Confluence, but I didn't actually realize until like a couple weeks ago that there's like a version for every color. When I was doing research, I was like, oh, wow, some of these are very good. This is very expensive, right? 6 mana for a sorcery? That's a lot. That's definitely a lot. You get 3 effects that you choose though. Okay, you choose 3 effects. So that's 2 mana per effect. Pretty good deal, I think. Anyway, the one we care about here is search your library for a basic land card, put it into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So you can do this 3 times, put 3 lands in tapped, and then shuffle. Or put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Any permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. This is like if you've got one of your win cons in the graveyard, straight back to hand, straight back onto the battlefield. It's so useful. It almost like it's crazy. Dinosaurs. Oh, so the Altasaur, this is looking at very much the Dinosaur Kindred kind of ones. We have a major Dinosaur Kindred sub-theme in this deck. So if a source would deal damage to another dinosaur you control, prevent all but 1 of that damage. It does keep 1 damage, and that's important because you need 1 damage at least to be able to proc your abilities. This is great for like, what was it called? Ranging Raptors, where they only have 3 toughness, but that you can get 3 hits on him in a turn before he dies. That's 3 activations that are going to be doubled to 6, and each one gets any land you want. So for 3 mana, getting 6 activations on something is just, or 6 lands out is just crazy. Anyway, Forerunner of the Empire. So when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a dinosaur card, reveal it, shuffle your library, and put that card on top of it. It doesn't go to hand. I wish it did, but it doesn't. And whenever a dinosaur enters the battlefield under your control, you may have Forerunner of the Empire deal 1 damage to each creature. Again, each creature, this is very, very good against things like token decks. If they're using a lot of 1/1 tokens, you can just like nuke their whole strategy basically, and use this to trigger all of your damage effects, and then because they're triggering, they trigger twice. So you're going to get like just a whole ton of value out of this, and you're shutting down a bunch of potential other strategies. Just fantastic. But yeah. Yeah. All right. Pantlaza, Sun Favored. Apparently he's in a pre-con, which I didn't realize. I actually put him on a video before, on my recommendations for interesting commanders. I put him on, and someone was like, oh, you know that there's a pre-con with him, right? And I was like, oh, oops. Anyway, I can't keep track of all the pre-cons anymore. I'm used to there being like 4 per year, not like, I don't even know how to guess. 20? More? More than 20, yeah. Anyway, okay. So when this or another dinosaur enters the battlefield under your control, you may discover X, where X is that creature's toughness. Do this only once each turn. So once per turn when you play a dinosaur, you're going to discover X, which I believe is like Cascade, but it can be the same value or lower. So basically, you start going through your... Basically, you start going through your deck, and then you find something you can cast for like the same cost or lower, and you just automatically cast it. Very good, kind of sneaky, almost ramp feeling thing, but anyway, alright. Poetic Ingenuity. So whenever one or more dinosaur you have attack, create that many treasure tokens. So again, you're just gonna be attacking with dinosaurs, and then you can just stack up your treasure tokens to let you cast a bunch more dinosaurs. And on and on and on. So whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 3/1 dinosaur creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. Yeah, sure, you know, why not? Don't really care about that part. I want the treasure. And Earthshaker Dreadmaw. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each other dinosaur you control. This can very likely be a good amount of card draw, just all of a sudden, right? It does cost 6, but it's 6 that's going to draw you, hopefully, like 6 cards. It's just something where like Poetic Ingenuity becomes very useful because it's going to get more dinosaurs on the battlefield. It doesn't say non-token dinosaurs, just dinosaurs, right? So there's a few effects that let you make dinosaur tokens in this deck, or a couple I can think of off the top of my head, but probably more. Damage Reflection. This is very important in this deck. Really intimidating people out of it coming at you. Brash Taunter, we talked about already. He's probably my favorite one. Donna Noble. This is a very interesting one. She has Soul Bond, which is not really a commonly used mechanic anymore, but when she enters the battlefield, you choose another creature for her to be Soul Bonded with, and if that creature takes damage, she does that much damage to anything else. So if Brash Taunter is on the battlefield, attach her to, or Soul Bond her to Brash Taunter, and then it's going to do the damage, and then do the damage again because of Wayta, and then Donna's going to do the damage, and because Donna's ability is activated by damage, she's going to do the damage again. And that's something we're looking at for one of our combos. Even just those two, that's 4. 4 times damage, right? So any damage that Brash Taunter takes, you can send back 4 times the amount at any one you want. Whew! Oh, Donna specifies opponent, not just target anything, any target, but yeah. Oh, they both say target opponent, okay. Boros Reckoner to any target. Again, Brash Taunter and Donna are both to opponent, which is what we really want anyway. Boros Reckoner is not indestructible, so there's a downside, but can target any opponent. There's the upside. Stuffy Doll is indestructible, but the downside with Stuffy Doll is that you need to choose who it's targeting when it enters the battlefield. Brash Taunter, every time it takes damage, you can decide on a different opponent. Stuffy Doll, when it enters the battlefield, you're choosing one opponent, and it's just that choice is locked in. So there's kind of the downside there, but hopefully you have a good idea of who you want to focus on anyway. And Tai Walking, Perfect Shot. So this is from the Outlaws of Thunder Junction set. And basically what she does is she increases non-combat damage. So like all of this damage reflection is non-combat damage. So you're targeting an opponent, you're going to tap her and add extra damage. The extra damage is not considered procced by damage though. So you're not getting double for that. At least not from this you don't, but anyway. From your commander's ability does not double it, and is what I should say, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, she can increase damage equal to X, right? However much mana you pay when you tap her is how much extra damage is going to come at somebody. This is very, very useful, obviously, so yeah. Win con number 1. Brash Taunter, just an amazing card, but in this deck, just an absolute, like, all-star. And we already talked about Pariah. This is Pariah's shield. all damage that would be dealt to you is dealt to equipped creature instead. So this is way better than Pariah because it is an equipment, right? If somehow they exiled Brash Taunter, you just throw this on the next thing that has damage reflection and keep going. This kind of just keeps you from taking damage and keeps you reflecting damage just all the time. Oh my. Win con number 2. So we're getting into our dinosaur strategy here. This is actually not really dinosaur, but it's a trample, right? So whenever one or more creatures you control deal damage to a player, create an creatures with trample deal combat damage, and they have to have trample. Create an XX green dinosaur beast token. Again, this is making those dinosaur tokens where X is the amount of damage that those creatures dealt to that player. So this feels like it should be a commander. It's not a legendary creature, but it feels like it should. Anyway, Hornbash Mentor. So when it enters the battlefield, put a trample counter on target non-human creature you control. Other than him and your commander, I'm not sure which other creatures. There's a few other humans, but not a lot. Anyway, for 2 and a green, you can tap him to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with trample. Alright, which is really, really good, especially with the next ability. Garrick's Uprising. So you draw a card if you play a creature power 4 or greater, which you have lots of. And creatures you control have trample. So all of your creatures have trample. Hornbash Mentor, you pay that, you tap them, everything gets +1/+1. And they have trample, so that +1/+1 is just going to be damage. And yeah. Alright, sorry. You can, when it enters the battlefield, for each creature you control with power 4 or greater, draw a card, and then when you play a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. So there's just tons of card draw on this as well, because, you know, it wasn't enough, I guess. Win con number 3. This is very much just focusing on combat. Combat is always a win con, but this is like more specific. How do you win in combat, I guess? So, Goring Triceratops. This costs 7. It's a lot for a 3/3. Oh my. Whenever Goring Triceratops attacks, other creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn. So if it has double strike, if you attack with it and all of your other creatures, everything gets double strike. And if Garrick's Uprising is out, they have trample, double strike. Remember, double strike is first strike and regular attack. So if anything's blocking, they take damage first, and the damage still does roll over because of trample. Doi. Anyway, Awakening Sun's Avatar. This is so expensive. Okay. 5 and 3 white, so 8 to cast this, but it is, when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, destroy all non-dinosaur creatures. Basically a one-sided board wipe. You've hopefully got the ability to recast your commander or something, because it will kill your commander, but if you're doing this as like kind of an ending to end the game, hopefully it won't matter. Anyway, so yeah, just blow up everything that's not a dinosaur and then attack. Done. And finally, Naya Charm. I've lost to this before. One of my students used this to great effect. The third option here is one of those modal charms. Tap all creature target player controls. This is so good. I think in a lot of people's minds, they think making your creatures unblockable and tapping all of their things so they can't block, those are equal. They're not. Tapping down someone's board means everyone gets to attack them. Basically, you green light the whole table to just like come after them, right? It's again best if you're not the number one threat at the table, but it is a great thing to kind of even the odds. I love it. Finally, win con number 4. Dictate of the Twin Gods. Remember, this is enchantment with flash, okay? If a source would deal damage to a permanent or a player, it deals double that damage to a permanent or player instead. This is usually kind of a risky thing. You want to have something that protects you, right? Pariah or Pariah Shield, ideally, and that way any damage you take is doubled, but you don't care. It's actually good, anyway. And Glory. When it's in your graveyard, it gains more power. I love that. Killing creatures is a strength of this deck. Killing your own creatures even more so, right? So anyway, for 2 and a white, choose a color. Creatures you control gain protection from the chosen color until end of turn. And again, this is from the graveyard. It's an activated ability. It is not tapped, so you can use this multiple times on a turn. For 6 mana, you could protect all of your creatures from like 2 different colors. I would be surprised if someone has like creatures with so many different colors out that they can keep blocking, even if all of your stuff is unblockable. This is also very useful for keeping your stuff alive, right? If there's any kind of targeted effect, targeted removal, you can just protect your creature by like saying, okay, 2 and a white, boom, protection from whatever that color of that removal is, and done. Basically make it an illegal target. It's not quite a counterspell, but close enough that I think it's almost better than counterspell, because like once you do this once, everyone's gonna be like, okay, I'm not gonna bother. I'm just gonna stop trying for the rest of the game, or they'll exile your graveyard and ruin everything, but you know. Part 3, combos and tactics. So getting the most. Or getting the most value. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, please hit like and subscribe. It does help. So tutor-ish. So these aren't exactly all tutors, so that's why I said tutor-ish. Analyze the pollen. I think this is such a fantastic tutor. It's still under $1. It never should have been under $1. I think, again, it has kind of a weird contingency on it, so that's, I think, where it drops in value. It's not a hard contingency, so let's talk about it. As an additional cost of the spell, you may collect evidence 8, exile cards with total mana value 8 or greater from your graveyard. Dinosaurs are high value, right? High mana value. Even if you've got like 3 cards in your graveyard, you'll probably be able to collect evidence 8. It's just not a deck where that's hard to do, right? And then you can search your library for a basic land card if evidence was collected. Instead, search your library for a creature or land card, reveal that card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So for 1 green, collect evidence 8, you can get any creature you want and just throw it directly into your hand. This has a lot of creatures that can like fix problems, that can like win the game potentially. As long as you're set up, grabbing that out of your deck and then being able to drop it whenever you want is just like how you win the game. It's how you solve problems, how you win the game. Okay, again, for a run of the Empire, we talked about this guy already, but yeah, you can search your deck for any dinosaur, right? That is the main thing we're going to be able to want to search for. Analyze the pollen. I'd probably want to search for a Brash Taunter if he's not already out. Anyway, Toadscan Seer. Return target dinosaur card from your graveyard to your hand. If your dinosaur is in the graveyard, there's a good chance someone wanted to put it there because it's a pain in the butt. You want to put it back out. This returns it to your hand, and then you put it back in the battlefield. I think always people go, it would be better if it just went from the graveyard straight to the battlefield. I agree, but you know what? There it is. So this hurts you, or sorry, yeah, this hurts you more than it hurts me. Very long title for this one. Anyway, using Brash Taunter, Pariah's Shield. We talked about this combination already. You get attacked, Brash Taunter takes the damage. The triggers get doubled. So anytime you take damage, let's say you take 5 damage, you give 10 damage to someone else, remember. Okay? Dictate of the Twin Gods. So this doubles damage players or permanents are taking. So you're supposed to take the damage, it gets doubled. It gets moved to I don't think it would double again when it gets moved to Brash Taunter. I could be wrong, but Brash Taunter takes the damage. I guess you don't really take the damage, but anyway. Brash Taunter takes the damage, right? It gets doubled again when he triggers because of your commander. And then, yeah, he's going to do the damage to another player. That's going to trigger it again. And that's going to double it again. So even with this, you're doubling it 4 times, right? You take double damage. Brash Taunter triggers twice. Dictate of the Twin Gods goes off when... Oh, sorry, 3 times. There's 3. Yeah. I feel like I'm counting wrong, but anyway. There's at least 3. And then let's see what happens next. Donna Noble. Once again, putting Donna Noble attached to Brash Taunter. If you can, do it, right? If you have Brash Taunter out already, and you have analyzed the pollen, and you're going to collect evidence, get Donna Noble. Anyway, Donna Noble will trigger. That will be doubled by your commander, and then she will do damage, which is then the double damage, then doubled again. So yeah. You're up to doubling 5 times with these 4. If you have these 4 cards out, 5 times. You're doubling 5. So that's 10 times damage. If you take 5 damage, you assign 50 damage to another player. 50. Oh, yeah. Just player removal. Did you hear that? Is what I'm calling this one. So this is another, I'm kind of, any of the damage reflection cards will work here. I just want to keep featuring different ones. So yeah. So whenever self-damage deals that much damage to target player. Yep, sure. Gideon Sacrifice. So this is one of the best ones in this deck for damage reflection or damage. Yeah. You cast this on something and all of the damage that you and all of your opponents take is instead done to that thing. So if it's Brash Taunter, and let's say there's 4 other creatures out, if those creatures all take damage, Brash Taunter is going to take 100% of that damage, right? And so that's where something like Deafening Clarion is useful. Choose one or both. So it deals 3 damage to each creature, and or creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. So you deal 3 damage to each creature. Let's say you have Brash Taunter and 4 other creatures. Gideon Sacrifice on Brash Taunter. You cast this, you damage all your own creatures. All of the damage goes to Brash Taunter or any damage reflection unit you want, and then that much damage just goes out. It's 15 damage to anyone you want, right? So yeah. And Gideon Sacrifice, especially as like in battle, if you cast this and then they know you're going to like just attack, and if they block, your creature takes damage, and then you're going to be essentially reflecting the damage back at them. There's not much point in blocking then, is there? No. Card draw. Earthshaker Dreadmaw we talked about already. Flump. It's a defender with flying. Flying is something we need in this deck for sure. So whenever it's dealt damage, you and target opponent each draw a card. The downside is that you're giving an opponent some card draw. This is very useful politically though, right? You don't want to just tick off everyone at the table because then you lose the game. This keeps someone on it allows you to keep someone on good terms, I mean. Ripjaw Raptor. Whenever it's dealt damage, draw a card. Deal a card. Yeah, that's how this game works. Anyway, remember double, right? Every time it takes damage, you're drawing 2 cards, not 1. So adds up very quickly, and you can just keep doing it every turn. I think that is so much better than like a one-time big card draw. Being able to get like 3 every turn instead of 1. Very much better. I think there's much less of a target painter on its back then as well. But anyway. Staff of Nin. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. And it can also be tapped to deal 1 damage to any creature or player. Once again, you can use this just to like set off your own creature's damage, right? Or damage abilities. So you can trigger your own creatures with this. It is 6 mana, but even just for the damage aspect in this deck, it's kind of worth it. But you're also drawing an extra card just every turn. Card. That stacks up very quickly. And Garruk's Uprising, once again, we talked about that one already too. You do have Earthshaker's Dreadmaw and Garruk's Uprising are those big card draw cards. Garruk's Uprising is also like a consistent card draw engine. So yeah, kind of both on Garruk's Uprising because it's a crazy card. Anyway. Fight. Bushwhack. This lets you find a basic land or get target creature control to fight a creature you don't control. Again for 1 green. And this spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a dinosaur. Again, this is 2 and a green. If you use it on a dinosaur, it's only a green. You put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, then that creature fights target creature you don't control. Okay, so you're gonna be able to be putting those +1/+1 counter on whatever you want, and then it's just gonna destroy something. Probably someone else's commander. Let's face it, this is like a commander kill spell. Alright, this is what you should be using this for. 1 green to remove someone's commander? Yay! Jamoka's command. Jamoka, am I saying it wrong? It sounds like an insult The Rock would say. Jamoka. But anyway. Choose 2. I do love the modals, these command modals that let you choose 2 things instead of just 1. It's only 2 mana, so if it was only 1, you probably wouldn't complain, but it's like 1 mana per effect. Whew. Anyway, prevent all damage that target instant or sorcery spell would deal this turn? Maybe? You might save your commander with that, I guess. Target player sacrifices an enchantment. That can deal with all kinds of annoying stuff. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Yeah, maybe. Creature you control fights target creature you don't control. There it is. Probably the fight option, and I would have a hard time. It would depend on the situation. If someone has that one really annoying enchantment, the enchantment, right? The bad thing about sacrificing enchantment is that they choose. So if they've got more than 1 enchantment and they don't care about 1, they can just junk 1 and meh. So it is somewhat situational, but it is still very good when it comes up. Boxing Ring. So this one does have potentially a downside. I don't think it is though. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control with the same mana value. So this is just going to have creatures automatically fighting other creatures. A lot of your converted mana cost is going to be higher than other people's, so they might not even have a valid target. So if they do, it can be useful. Again, you want to trigger those things. Also, when they enter the battlefield, they are summoning sick. They can't even attack that turn, so they might as well fight, right? Also, you can tap this to create a treasure token. Activate only if you control a creature that fought this turn. An extra treasure token per turn, and the ability to just keep fighting. Just very, very, very good in this deck. Prize fight, so target creature fights another target creature you don't control. Create a treasure again. Getting that treasure is so worth it. It really is. Protect your investment. So one of the downsides to something like dinosaurs is that they are expensive, right? They're high CMC, their mana cost is very high. So you want to keep them alive once you play them. Unbreakable formation, you can give everything indestructible and +1/+1 counters if you cast it during your main phase. You give everything also +1/+1 counters and indestructible. Crazy useful. Make a stand, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. The damage boost and indestructible again. Joins shields. This is nice also as a counter. It's way more expensive, but still. 3 green-white. Untap all creatures you control. Untap everything. They gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Hexproof and indestructible. Just can solve all kinds of problems, right? Lazelle's Acrobatics. This removes all of your creatures from the battlefield and then puts them back. All your non-token creatures. And then puts them back down. It's a nice blink effect, but remember, when you have no creatures, you can be targeted. This does let you, basically take all your creatures and move out of the way of a board wipe and then put them back down so they're all safe. Except for the token creatures, but if they exile, they disappear. So that's kind of okay, I think. And then Dromoka's Command, of course. You can prevent all damage from a target instant or sorcery. So if you're expecting something like I can't remember what it's called now. Of course, I forget everything when I'm recording. A sorcery I use all the time. Anyway, it does a whole bunch of damage. It does 8 damage to creatures, then costs 1 less for each target or a creature it hits. It costs 1 less. Red spell? Anyway. This would be able to let you just ignore that, right? Very, very useful stuff. And so yeah, this has been Wayta, Trainer Prodigy. Again, Budget Barney Fight is what I'm calling this, which I think is a fun name. But anyway, take it easy.